In facial recognition, technology is not quite as good as they want you to believe from the movies news. Facial recognition technology was used to jail a man for days just based on facial recognition alone. And so, he's like, wait a second, that's not really fair. You had no other basis to hold me and keep me in jail for many, many days because you didn't have any basis to believe I was the guy other than facial recognition, which can be hit or miss at best. So, not enough to, hold me. And so he's joined a lawsuit saying, this is some BS. So let's learn a little bit more about the facial recognition technology gone wrong. Randall Karan Reed was driving to his mother's home the day after Thanksgiving last year when police pulled him over on the side of a road and arrested him on a busy Georgia interstate. They arrested him because he was wanted for crimes in Louisiana, they told him, before taking him to jail. The man would spend the next several days locked up trying to figure out how he could be suspected in a state he says he never visited. So yeah, he's arrested on a roadside in Georgia, saying you're wanted for crimes in Louisiana based merely on facial recognition alone, and then kept in jail for multiple days. So not great. A lawsuit filed this month blames the misuse of facial recognition technology by a sheriff detective for the ordeal. I was confused and was angry because I didn't know what was going on, the man said. They couldn't give me any information outside of, you have to wait for Louisiana to come and take you, and there was no timeline for that. The individual, who is 29, is among at least 5 black plaintiffs who have filed lawsuits against law enforcement in recent years, saying they have been misidentified by facial recognition technology and wrongly arrested. So, in the movies and the TV shows, the facial recognition technology is this magic thing that just, inevitably identifies the guy and, is right every time and is basically magic. In the real world, slightly less magical and leads to, many problems. 3 of the lawsuits, including one by a woman who was 8 months pregnant, who was accused of carjacking, are also against Detroit police. The technology allows law enforcement agencies to feed images from video surveillance into software that can search government databases or social media for possible matches. So that's what they're trying to do. They're just using, video footage, which, can be hit or miss in quality in its own right, and trying to use that to match social media accounts, which might be enough for an investigation. But is it enough for an arrest? It doesn't seem to be reliable enough, it appears. Critics say there's also a higher rate of misidentification for people of color than of white people, which, to my very limited understanding, is true that the facial recognition technology is not as accurate when it comes to darker complexions than lighter complexions. That the technology has a bit of a harder time, which raises even more concern that it shouldn't be used as a sole basis for an arrest. Supporters say it's been vital in catching drug dealers, solving killings and missing person cases, and identifying and rescuing human trafficking victims, which I'm sure is true. I'm sure the facial recognition technology has been valuable. I am sure from time to time it helps give you very promising leads. And sometimes those leads do pay out in really, really helpful ways. So it takes, a complete, forest of possibility and helps give you some people that might be the tree you're looking for. But you can't rely on it like it's God. So does it help you in some of the cases? It certainly does. Is it enough on its own basis to arrest a guy? Seems a little bit dubious. They also contend that vast majority of the images sourced are criminal mugshots, not driver's license photos or random pictures of individuals, which I'm not sure necessarily makes me feel any better, by the way, incidentally. Because the problem isn't what we're necessarily matching against. The problem is, one, what we're matching from. So what is the quality of the photo or video that we're using as a basis to identify? So that's a whole thing. And then, of course, how good is the algorithm? Because it can be a bit hit or miss. Some cities and states have limited its use as a result of this because it's proven to not always be the most super reliable thing ever. A senior attorney for a law firm in Atlanta who's representing the man in this story said, the use of the technology by law enforcement, even if standards and protocols are in place, has grave civil liberty and privacy concerns. And that's nothing to say about the reliability of the technology itself, which leaves a lot to be desired, particularly as it relates to minorities in which the technology does not appear to be as reliable. The lawsuit was filed September the 8th in federal court in Atlanta and names the sheriff and detective as defendants. Apparently, what happened according to the complaint was they used surveillance video, relied solely on a match generated by facial recognition technology to seek an arrest warrant for Reed after a stolen credit card was used to buy two purses for more than $8,000 from a consignment store. First of all, those are some really, really expensive purses. Second of all, we're just using the one match to generate an arrest warrant. That seems kind of shaky to me. We'd want to try to, that it gives us that this is a person of interest. Sure. But, you might want to look into it more before going straight to arrest. The technology does not appear to be reliable enough of that. The complaint says that the cops did not even conduct a basic search into Reed, which would have revealed Reed was in Georgia at the time the theft occurred, which, is somewhat of a decent alibi. I was in a different state at the time. So they didn't do any investigation. They relied solely, completely on the facial recognition. So that's the problem. In an affidavit seeking the warrant, the police cited still photographs from the surveillance footage, but did not mention the use of facial technology. So again, another instance where the arrest warrant affidavit less than fully complete. Probably should have let the judge know about that. The detective instead saying they were advised by a credible source that one of the suspects in the video was the individual. Okay, that's just what we call perjury. The officer lied on the arrest warrant affidavit, which has to be submitted under oath. So that's what we call perjury. It's not merely that I omitted that it came from the automated matching. It's instead I said I had a credible source. That's the perjury. You lied on the arrest warrant affidavit. You can't just make up credible sources. You can't just make up an informant, which has been known to happen. Incidentally, the police, they don't have probable cause and they really want to do a search, so they'll just pretend like they have an informant. Sadly, not the first time it's happened, but it's still illegal. You can't do that. You can't make up the non-existent informants. The individuals in the lawsuit believe that the cops citing facial recognition technology in the affidavit was at best misleading. I'd go further than that. I'd say it's perjury. The email explaining the events that led to the arrest say members of the force were told again they need additional evidence or leads when using facial recognition. So their own policy says facial recognition isn't enough. You need more than that for the arrest. So what do? You just fake an informant. Can't do that. That's illegal. That's bad. The suit therefore accuses the police of false arrest, malicious prosecution, and negligence, failing to implement adequate policies around the use of facial recognition technology, and therefore liability, and seeks unspecified damages. As the individual sat in jail, his family hired an attorney in Louisiana who presented video and footage of the individual to the sheriff's office. The person in the surveillance footage was considerably heavier and didn't have a mole that this individual had, which was a clue that maybe it wasn't the same person. The sheriff's office asked the judge to withdraw the warrant. 6 days later, Georgia released him. So it took nearly a week for him to be released on this bogus information. His car had been towed and he had become sick in jail. He also missed his work. Nearly a year later, he is still haunted by the experience, which I understand. I'd be pretty pissed too about this. You arrested me without good cause and you lied on the basis of the reason I was arrested. You said you had an informant. You didn't have an informant. You lied, sir, and you kept me in prison falsely. So you basically kidnapped me. So yeah, every time I see police in my rearview mirror, it flashes back in my mind. I understand I'd be pretty pissed too. So I hope his lawsuit, if this is true, goes forward and he's able to do some good in this world by perhaps preventing the police from doing this in the future, and also punishing the people who lied on his arrest warrant affidavit because, they violated their oath and therefore committed the perjury. So that would be nice. Let's wrap this up. Thus, that brings us to the end of this lawsuit of an individual who is suing because the police used facial recognition technology, and only facial recognition technology, in order to get an arrest warrant, and lied about having a credible source on the arrest warrant affidavit, even though their own policies said you can't rely on solely the AI. You need more, because they recognize as a matter of policy that technology is not sufficiently reliable for an arrest. Is it sufficiently reliable to do an investigation? Sure. Why not? This is a plausible person that might be a suspect. Do some further research. If it turns out to be the guy, maybe you can generate probable cause. But the police deciding to skip a step, just, lie about having a reliable source when they didn't, and violated their own policies by using solely the AI facial matching, even though it isn't sufficiently reliable. So he's suing for his week-long stay in jail because of the false arrest under false pretenses and malicious prosecution and all the rest of it. And if true, hopefully it will win. So we'll see how that pans out. At least for the moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this case.